and I always have to remove this thing to put that thing in.
Call to order the Public Safety Meeting of December 4th, 2025. Would you join in the Pledge of Allegiance?
That's how they do it.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The agenda, are there changes or additions?
We have the addition under 6D, the Axon contract review. And then we also have item 8, trial courts, the resolution to approve interim agreement for operation of the youth facility.
Move to add agenda items 6D and 8A.
Motion and support, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Approval of the minutes from November 6, 2025.
Moved.
Moved and support, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, no. Motion carries. We have a portion of limited public comment. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak? See no response. Moving on. We down to number 6, the Sheriff Office Department Report.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I don't think I need to introduce myself. I think everybody knows who I am. November 2nd, we had a multiple assault warrant arrest. Deputies stopped a car and arrested a passenger who had 9 total outstanding arrest warrants through us. Lansing and East Lansing for probation violations and assaults. We also seized the suspected narcotics, which were sent to the crime lab and pending the results. And we'll be seeking additional arrest warrants for this individual. On November 6th, we had a personal injury crash, Canal in Northport. 2 vehicles crashed, disabling both vehicles in the roadway of Canal just south of Northport. One of the drivers was either in his car with the door open or just outside of his car, which had no lights on. Another vehicle was driving south and did not see the stopped vehicle. It was struck, one of the crash vehicles causing it to go about 30 yards off the roadway to the east, and the driver of that vehicle was thrown south onto the roadway. The driver was transported to Sparrow Hospital by EMS with significant head injuries. On the same date, deputies were dispatched on a report of a man with a gun at the Waverly Party Store. Upon investigation, they found a male who is a CPL holder inside the store, and part of the handle of his gun was sticking out. Another male had tried to steal his gun, and the two started to fight. The victim got his gun back during the fight, and the suspect fled. We acquired some evidence, which we are sending to the crime lab to attempt to identify this suspect. On November 7th, we assisted Clinton County Sheriff's Office. We did not assist in their pursuit of a vehicle, but when it was stopped, we arrived and helped arrest the 3 occupants. On November 9th, Deputy Joe Brown had been trying to find a shelter for a homeless family with children who had been trying to stay warm at McDonald's. All the shelters were full. Deputy Brown and Deputy Davidson went to the Travel Lodge, got them a room at their own expense for the night. Joe did reach their caseworker for Clinton County, who was going to help the family out at the next day. Nice work for these 2 deputies. I thought that was very exceptional, paying for that room and everything else. Pretty cold out there this time of year. November 10th, we assisted MSP on a breaking and entering in progress. MSP was dispatched to the 1600 block of East Grand Ledge Highway for a breaking and entering. The victim came home and discovered several people breaking into his house. As the suspects fled, they attempted to hit the caller. The victim provided accurate license plates and good vehicle descriptions. Our deputy spotted and stopped one of the vehicles that was traveling eastbound on St. Joe. Many stolen items were recovered from that car. November 11th, felonious assault at Mall Drive West. An intoxicated male suspect came into the apartment and assaulted his mom's boyfriend with a hammer, striking him in the head. He left on foot and was located and arrested by deputies on Farmstead. November 13th, we had a suicidal male on Adair Circle. Deputies responded to look for the male who was making suicidal statements to his wife and left the house. We had previously been there on multiple times for his military veteran who has made suicidal statements. When we were called, he would then make threatening statements about guns and of not cooperating with police. Deputies arrived and observed him outside the front of the home and walked toward the backyard and went inside the house. When deputies attempted to call him out of the house, he came out several times and was not listening to their commands. Eventually, deputies were able to secure him. He was transported to community mental health. On November 18th, deputies stopped a vehicle and arrested a male who had an extraditable U.S. Marshal's warrant for smuggling narcotics. He was lodged in our jail. On November 21st, deputies were dispatched to an incident exposure call at Mount Hope Park. The suspect was watching pornography in his vehicle when the complainant walked by. He then pulled up next to her and lifted his hips and to show her that he was naked from the waist down. The suspect left westbound on Mount Hope. The next day, we got the same call and were able to get there quickly. The suspect was arrested for 2 counts of indecent exposure, carried a concealed weapon, and a felon in possession of a firearm. November 24th, we had a fleeing and eluding CCW violation of a controlled substance. One of our deputies tried to stop a car at Waverly and Kalamazoo. The vehicle went into Lansing, and the deputy lost sight of the vehicle. Shortly after, the Lansing Police Department found the vehicle, and the suspects had fled. The deputy had gotten a good look at the suspect and was able to give a good description of them. We received a tip from a citizen about some suspects matching the description and their location. We located the suspects as they got into another car. One of the suspects resisted and fought with a deputy while trying to exit the car. During the fight, the deputy saw a handgun the suspect was sitting on and was able to secure it. All the suspects were arrested and lodged in various crimes, including possession of drugs. November 26th, a vehicle house crash at the 8100 block of Haverstock. A male driver lost control of his 2015 BMW M4 on the icy road, drove it over a 30-foot tree, and then crashed into the residence and narrowly missing, striking an elderly woman who was sleeping on the couch inside the home. When deputies got there, the vehicle was still halfway inside the house. November 28th, deputies stopped the car and arrested the driver for outstanding arrest warrants. When the passenger was asked to get out of the vehicle, he said he had a gun on him. He was arrested and is currently out on bond through Lansing Police Department and East Lansing Police Department arrests for resisting and obstructing, home invasion first, and malicious destruction of police property. Same day, we had a breaking and entering at Sultan's Mediterranean Restaurant. The owner called dispatch and said 2 subjects broke into, and he could see them on his security camera, and they were now out back. Deputies arrived quickly and observed them running north through the library parking lot. Deputies were able to apprehend both suspects, and they were lodged at our youth center. With all these arrests, I don't know why our jail isn't full. That's all I have. Any questions?
Commissioner Christensen, question?
Thank you. I first want to say thank you to the 2 deputies that helped the homeless family out. That was very kind of them to do what they did. But I'm curious, in Eaton County, I honestly don't know, do we have warming centers anywhere, do you know? Or do we have, I know we've got community mental health, but we learned a lot about that yesterday. But do we happen to have a shelter or like a homeless shelter or anything that families can go to like Lansing does?
That might be a question for our emergency manager, Ryan. He might have that answer. I don't.
Okay.
Ryan, do you want to come up here? You can answer your question, I think.
Yeah, so as it relates to warming centers, we don't have any county-specific warming centers. Oftentimes, we leave that up to the local entities, the townships, the villages, the cities. They certainly have the prerogative to open up any sort of warming center with any sort of time frame that they wish to do. Most of them try to do it between normal business hours if that's something that they do choose to do. We try to keep an eye on that stuff and promote that if that's something that we're able to do. From a specific homeless shelter, no, the county doesn't have any homeless shelters like the city of Lansing does. As far as like our chronic homeless count, those that we know are unhoused, It is a very small number. I think the number has fluctuated depending on kind of when you look at the census. I don't have that number right now in front of me, but no, we don't have any specific homeless shelter here in the county.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Sheriff? One from Commissioner Hart.
How many vacancies do we have in the jail?
We average about 170, 180 inmates daily. Our jail has a capacity of 374.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Let's okay, can move on. Letter B, the police services contract update. Was somebody going to speak to that?
Go ahead. Between the sheriff and.
Yeah, probably tag team effort between our office and the sheriff. So we've been in discussions with various communities. At this point, we have met with Windsor a couple of times. We've met with Oneida. Myself and Lieutenant Dahlgren had the pleasure of getting to go to Windsor Township's board meeting last month to present some feasibility models. Currently, Windsor has one deputy contract that expires at the end of this month, so we need to follow up with them and continue our discussions and see. Part of what was proposed was a cost-sharing contractual agreement between multiple communities. So Oneida desires to do a contract. They can't afford a full deputy. Windsor is evaluating the current model when we apply the admin fee and a command structure service fee so that it's more in line with kind of the Delta agreement where we re-equalized cost to actual costs rather than the county providing an SEV credit or any type of subsidy on a police services agreement. So we're hopeful. We're continuing those discussions. We have a tentative meeting for Monday with Maple Valley, which we have a school resource officer agreement with them. So we're hoping we can continue to have those, and if we can get enough communities of interest or units of interest that can fund 2 deputies or more, that would be fantastic. But that's what we're working on right now. Sheriff, anything to add?
I don't have anything to add. However, I did have a meeting this week with the superintendent for Maple Valley. Didn't go over very well, but I gave her some ideas what she can do. So I don't know if the commissioner will be getting any calls from Maple Valley, but we're trying really hard. What they're asking was too much liability for the county, and I didn't see it was worth the risks. So that's all I have.
What we received after the meeting that the sheriff had, my office received an inquiry from the superintendent. So we've emailed back and forth, and that's why we have the meeting on Monday to talk about the dollar amount. So obviously, the school district being able to afford something, a high expense is not going to be easy for them to go into mid-school year. So they're going to be looking for something reduced. And then what we'll have to do is have that discussion on what can they afford, and then how can the sheriff work the hours in, but maintain it under the same contractual obligations that we've been setting forth since we were able to keep Delta. So it's going to be, hopefully some quick discussions because it's very important for the school. They're in a bad situation, obviously, just because you're used to having that. They don't have sheriff's deputies that are out and able to respond. If something happens, they rely on MSP. And I will say that the MSP response time, based on information we received from Chief Deputy, did show that they're not able to get there the same way that our officers would, and especially if you had the officer that's in the school. So Maple Valley obviously has some challenges, and they really want to see something happen. So we'll try to work with them as best we can.
Yeah, and they also talked about how state instability added a layer of difficulty to their concerns because the last-minute budget really put them on the back foot. And then on top of that, the funding that they rely on to provide for this type of service, and I think some other like mental health services as well, was tied up in that process. So the distribution from the state may end up being delayed from what it should have been. So anyway, they've got a lot on their plate as well. And we can sympathize a lot with that because the state budget process was stressful at the county level as well. And we had some hits to departmental funding program cuts that happened at the last minute as well. So we can certainly sympathize with where they're at.
Thank you.
So I guess, sorry, there's no real action. If there is something like a contract, we would like to just bring it to Ways and Means if we have it, especially because the Oneida and the Windsor contract expire at the end of this month, but we just wanted to give you the update. We just don't have something to present like in a packet form. So I don't know if we would want a formal action from this board if you're, or this body if you're supportive of it, but since it's a financial matter, it would rest with Ways and Means, but the policy piece, yeah.
Well, and I would say related to the policy, just so that we're clear, if we're going to talk about having a policy, we're not talking about a new policy. So the only difference in the policy would be the dollar amount from where it exists with Delta. But the framework has to be the same as the Delta contract. So you're not going to be looking at a new contract that you haven't seen. It would be the Delta Township contract as it is, but at that smaller scale. I see.
Commissioner Toomey, you have a question?
Yeah, considering it's going to be the same contract structure as the one we already approved with Delta, I'm fine with it going to Ways and Means in terms of the expediency of the process.
Let's hope it goes there if we can get it done.
Right, and that was my next question, was do you anticipate something happening before the end of the month?
So I hope, at least with the ones that we have contracts for, Oneida's difficult because they can't fund a full FTE. I think Windsor's in a different position. They've been funding a full FTE for years. We have a contractual relationship going back with them, I want to say 5, 6+ years. So, yeah, different. The Oneida contract was an overtime contract, and that's a model that we don't have. Since we don't have an out-county patrol anymore, we can't support those same way. So I'm hopeful at least for that piece, but I have not followed up because the question was how many other communities of interest are there in adding a second FTE to that? So Windsor would partner with Oneida, Windsor, and I think there another township the sheriff's office has approached. And to your communities in your districts, if they're interested, there are communities that are saying, I can pay 25% of a deputy. So there's interest right now. So if folks have been debating about whether or not to contract with the sheriff's department, they have an opportunity to come in and not have to pay the full cost or reinvent the wheel because we're securing renewals of an existing contract. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? I don't see one. So moving on, we have a animal control update. Who is covering that?
The sheriff.
Brought along backup from our animal control officer, deputy that we have. I guess this is more important of what questions the commissioners have here in public safety that regarding our animal control building and our employee that we have, just one. So if we want to, I'll entertain any questions and Christie will answer. We do what we can over there. I think Christie can probably enlighten you more than I can. She does it on a daily basis. So I'm gonna let her go ahead and speak and let her, is there any specific questions you may have? Ben, do you have any at all, or?
So I think what prompted it was there were a lot of community questions. My understanding is trickling back from local police departments that were trying to understand what the vacuum of services would look like for them, and then what is the obligation or the need for them to then communicate to their council members. I believe that was the kind of the original
Well, that was, yeah,
part of
that
it,
was,
yeah.
that was initially, that was the concern when we realized that, you know, it was going away. But it's also just any animal agency that's taking in, you know, animals that are, you know, on the loose, and how do they deal with that, where something animal control would have done in the past, they're not able to do now. So what's the recommendation? What is it that Christie, being a single person in an office, dealing with animals, what can she do? So I think that's a lot of it too, so that the community knows if they see a dog running, you know, what's going to happen. If it's causing a public risk, health risk, safety risk, how do they deal with that? So a dog running on the highway that is backing up traffic, you know, because people are going to stop, slam on their brakes. What do you do with something like that if you can't control it and get a hold of Christy? So I don't know, Christy, if you want to address some of those things, what you can do. I'll go back and forth with you if you want.
Yeah, first off, for those who've not met me, I'm Christy Grinold. I am your only Eaton County Animal Control employee remaining. So I apologize, I wasn't exactly prepared to speak. I was just asked to attend, so this is kind of on the fly. I think the big thing that people need to realize is that while we do not have an officer specifically on the road doing, you know, animal control patrol, that doesn't mean that those complaints are not still being addressed. That falls into the hands of your local police departments in the local jurisdictions. So that's going to mean for Out County, it's going to be the Michigan State Troopers. Up in Delta, the deputies are doing the best that they can. And in your cities, your local PD are doing the best they can. I think there's a big learning curve, but I've heard from a lot of them. They do reach out to me and ask questions on how to handle stuff. And stuff is getting done. I know that there have been cases turned over to the prosecuting attorney, so they're not going completely, you know, I think there's this misconception that just nothing's being done, but your local PD is doing their best. We just don't have an animal control officer specific, and they have to realize that PD does have priority concerns. The big thing is that people have to realize that our shelter already was very small. We were already struggling with a very small staff. And when it is just me, we had to prioritize what dogs can and can't come into our shelter. So because we are so small, we have to prioritize the animals that are considered a risk. So that's going to be your animals that have bitten, your animals that are aggressive, they're causing destruction, the animals that may be very sick or very injured, those type of things. It's still going to be your local PD troopers and deputies that are responding to those calls, but I'm there to be able to help them. The problem that also lies in that, though, is that I am just one person. I am not available 24/7, so we do not have on-call anymore, and I cannot be expected to always be available. I certainly try to help by phone when I can, but it's challenging. I realize that. So the big thing is when people just come across like friendly, generally healthy strays, which I know that there are going to be differing opinions of what is and isn't an emergency or vicious or this type of animal, but you know, social media is great, our community is great. A lot of places will scan for microchips, your vet offices, your pet stores, there are community members. A lot of these dogs do get back home, and the ones that don't get back home, you just have to reach out to. We have a lot of rescues in the area. We have Capillary Humane Society. You got to get on waiting lists. It's not going to happen overnight, but if you make the effort to pick that dog up and put it into your possession, then you have to make the effort to find that dog, you know, a home. I can appreciate that we were an easy fix for everybody in the past, and I don't see that things have changed. Things have not gotten worse in our county. Everyone's just more aware of it now that we're not just solving all their problems for them. But certainly it seems like the community has really stepped up. And like I said, the key is social media, microchip scanning, and, you know, don't put a dog in your possession unless you're willing to, you know, take the extra step. And quite frankly, if you get on social media, you can find somebody that will take the dog, and if you don't want to. But yeah, if you end up in a position where you've got a dog that you feel like is dangerous, certainly reach out to your local PD, and if they think that I need to get involved, they'll get a hold of me. Sorry, I just went off on a tangent, but if anybody, I don't know if there's anything anyone else wants me to address.
That's perfect, but I know there's going to be questions. So.
Absolutely.
Question from Commissioner Toomey.
I don't really have a question. I just wanted to say thank you for this overview here. It's very helpful for me. I don't always know what to tell folks when they ask about what the specific criteria is that needs to be met here. So this is very helpful. I just wanted to say thank you for putting this together.
I appreciate the recognition. And I think with that being said, it is important for people to realize that it's still, the police are the go-between. Like, they're not going to be able to just contact me directly and have me solve their problems. It is going to be the police that are the ones that are going to determine when it is a situation that I do need to get involved.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Commissioner Christensen?
So it's very well known that I'm an animal advocate. I do run the Eaton County Lost and Found Pets page, so that helps, and you're right. If social media is a huge thing in this progress, you know, getting the dogs back home. But I have several questions. Just because also running a nonprofit now, you know, we get questions constantly. There is the 4 to 7 day stray hold. Once those dogs, that stray hold is up, say, you know, Charlotte City brings a dog to you, is that dog truly being euthanized if it's not home, picked up by its owner?
I mean, nothing has changed in our protocol of how we handle strays. If a dog comes in that is friendly and needs, you know, the big thing is a lot of the dogs that are coming to us right now are not situations where they are good, you know, candidates for adoption. But we're not taking in that many dogs right now. But certainly nothing has changed. I've still made numerous transfers to capillary in the past couple of months. And then, yes, sometimes there are dogs that require euthanasia. Most of those are actually dogs that are being surrendered by their owners because of bite investigations where dogs have been involved in very serious incidences.
And Connie was helpful yesterday. She enlightened me to the fact that, and I guess the easy way to say it, dumb on the situation. I attributed to animal control and an animal shelter being like the same form of thing. And then that's totally not the way it is. So that did help me a little bit yesterday. So you get a case where there's an abuse situation going on. What are we going to do as a county animal control at that point? Is there anything you can do? Because are you
Right, I
not
mean-
leaving the building still?
Yeah, I mean, they're all evaluated on a case-by-case situation. Obviously, that would still be like a police situation, but like a hypothetical situation is if someone had a dog that had been abused, it's still gonna be evaluated just like any other dog that would come through our facility. If it's something that we feel that is safe to adopt out, we don't do those adoptions right now, but we reach out to the rescues and the humane societies. We have a really good relationship with Paws Abilities Rescue and Capillary Humane Society. They pull a lot of dogs from us. But like I said, it would be case by case. I can't tell you 100%. It would totally depend if the dog is a suitable adoption candidate or not.
Okay, and then lastly, you say you have a good rapport with those two rescues. I do know for a fact, I've talked to Capital Area multiple times, they do have sometimes a 6 to 8 week wait list to get somebody picked up, you know, or surrendered to them. What would be, and this may be more a question for Sheriff, but what would be the chances if you're in the building of doing an adoption event or opening the doors and letting people come in and adopt the dogs from you?
If you're talking about the animals specifically at Eaton County Animal Control, the problem that we have faced for years now is that there's an incredible level of manpower that goes into making dogs adoptable. It is very rare that we just get a dog at animal control that is just ready to be adopted. Usually it's gonna have behavioral issues or medical issues that need to be addressed, and those are just better suited to go to places like Capillary Humane Society. But when we do get friendly animals, we work with the Capillary Humane Society's Spay and Neuter Clinic. There's a wait list. We don't have some special, you know, if we're very lucky, we might get in on a cancellation, and we find out about those about 20 minutes before, you know, they're due. But there's a wait time. Those animals end up being stuck in our shelter longer than they would have been if we just shipped them out to another place. And also, I mean, and this would be something to be considered for the future, but it's not something that I think is a priority right now, is that even though we raised our adoption fees a few years back, they're not even close to covering what it costs to make those dogs medically ready to be adopted out. So, and in general, like I said, we're not getting dogs that are just generally just ready to be adopted out unless they're cute little puppies. That takes a lot of manpower. I've done a lot of adoptions in the past years. You spend a lot of time with people, and if you want adoptions that are gonna work and that are not gonna be returned, you need to spend a lot of time with those people, a lot of time with those dogs, and I'm sorry, but I just certainly do not have the time to do that. And I know everyone thinks that volunteers are the answer, but that is just not feasible in an animal control environment because there's so much sensitive information because of cases, that type of thing. So it's just, I mean, there's so many working parts there that with what we have available, I don't see how that would be possible. I mean, obviously, you directed the question to Sheriff, he's welcome to jump in, but I think
No,
that
I
I
get
probably
what
have
you're
a better
saying.
idea of how to answer that.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. And then I guess I did say lastly, but one more thing. Do we have the laws that are written for Eaton County?
The county ordinance?
Yes. do we have, I mean, I applaud you, I do, for staying, because it's not been easy, and I don't envy you. But do we have, with just you over there, do we have the manpower to enforce?
As far as like putting me out on the road to enforce the county ordinance?
Yeah.
I mean, no, to be perfectly honest, we were struggling when it was just Josh and I, because having someone on the road generates a lot of work in the office on top of all the work that already needs to be done. It would be nearly impossible for me to, I would not be able to keep up at all. It would be impossible. I would not be able to stay in this position because I would not be able to do it.
All right. Thank you, Christy.
And I'd just like to add that to the board, but also to the public, you don't know how lucky you are to have Christy, because she's passionate about it. When we were going through all of the ballot proposal information, best source of information, best one to get the information out to the media, she was constantly available for Logan to go through anything that he needed. She's done a great job, and even when Josh was here, it was just the two of them. The number of hours that Josh worked and committed to doing animal control, right? Not just doing his regular job, committed. You don't find that. You know, they were down to just two people, and Christy was pretty much homebound in the, you know, the facility. So you're very lucky. I just want to say that. I think, you know, we've said it through the whole millage process, through everything, that Eaton County has, I think, the best employees. I'll say that all the time. The sheriff says that about, you know, he has the best. And this is another one of them. So thank you, Christy.
I have a question for Connie on that then. Should we eliminate the ordinance at this point then?
So you can do that, and I think there needs to be discussion about that. And I mean, I think we've kind of been talking about that in-house. We did have a meeting with the sheriff to kind of discuss where we were at with that. He still would have to follow the dog law, and we've talked about that. Again, you could do it. It just depends, what do you really want the shelter to do? You know, what are you going to do? Just keep it as a shelter for him to, you know, manage the state mandated dog law? So there's discussion. Are we closing that down? Are we going to, any dogs that have to go in, are we going to ship them somewhere? What if there's not a place to send an animal? Because you can contract out, which is difficult. All of the stuff is difficult because there's just not enough housing for anything. But yes, that's something that I think you're on the cusp of having to do. Sheriff?
It's controller.
I was just going to say, you know, as far as the discussions that we've had related to the ordinance and the inability to do any of that, you know, a lot of that work was done on call. You would see, you know, the vehicle, patrol vehicle, out all the time. But, you know, is that something that at this point you would, you know, say that we should do away with the ordinance? Does that fit in to assist Christy in any way? And, I mean, Christy, you can get back up, and if you think.
Would. I think it would if it got away with their ordinances. You know, these city police chiefs had the opportunity to support these the votes on the millage, and they would not support it. Now they got to deal with animals. Whoops. So now they got to deal with them. I think we still need to have the control center just for the dog laws. But you got to think of something even worse than that. Eaton County is a agricultural community. Domestic animals, that entails the whole thing of animals, horses, cows, pigs. We had an incident a few years back. We had, what, 60 pigs we had to deal with?
Oh, Lord, it's more than that.
It was a lot. Boy, that was fun. It might not be tomorrow, it might be next year, whenever. Who's going to deal with that? We can't do it. No way can we do it. State police, they're not going to deal with it. So we got to look at the whole picture of this thing with these ordinances. But right now, I think since I don't have an animal control officers to do the work, I think doing away with the ordinances would be in line. Thing about Christie, Christy is a great employee. She's dedicated, she has passion regarding animals. I couldn't ask for a better employee over there, and I know that she runs that whole building herself. Very little supervision, so she's pretty awesome.
She is. She's cleaning drains out constantly. I mean, she is. They're backed up all the time, and she's the one doing it. She'll call maintenance when she has to, but yeah, she's doing all of that. You just don't know how lucky you are. And that goes back to the building. You know, if we did away with the ordinance and we're going to keep the shelter open, what are we keeping it open for? You know, what are we doing? You know, at some point, it's just we're done and we figure out how to address other things without that shelter. It's not like we can do away with the ordinance and then have a shelter, because this is a shelter for the animal control process. It's not a shelter that you just do adoptions. That's, you know, that we've never been that. And I won't use the bad words that we've talked about before as far as what the shelter is meant to be and what we have to do as far as dealing with animals. We've never had the ability to have this great shelter and do adoptions, but they've done a lot over the course of Christie's tenure here as far as dealing with adoptions. And back to her point, if you don't take the time to vet families like you deal with when you are at other shelters, you're filling out more paperwork than you have to adopt children sometimes. It's true. So, you know, what are you going to do if you do away with the ordinance? To me, it's like we don't have a facility to shelter dogs. You know?
Commissioner Toomey, one more. We should move on maybe here in a minute.
Yeah, I just have a question. I mean, the licensing and everything is contained within the ordinance as well, right? For
The licensing is state. That's a state requirement, that you will license the dog, and the license fee goes into the treasurer's office, this is a controversy, which is the general fund, but the treasurer is the one that collects it. But that money has always gone in total to animal control. So right now, it's probably covering Christie's wages, but it's not covering everything else on top of Christie's wages. If that
Right. I
makes
guess
sense.
I'm looking at the animal control ordinance right now, and I'm just looking at Section 3 lays out the licensing. I understand it's a state requirement, but don't we have to have some sort of an ordinance to lay that all out?
An ordinance for licensing, no.
Okay.
I mean, it's the way that we're doing it in Eaton County, but if we didn't have the ordinance, then it would just go by the state law that you're required to. The difficulty, and back in the day, because I've said this, I've been here so long, we used to actually do audits. So we would have somebody come in that, you know, a past worker or somebody who was, you know, good with dealing with licensure, they would go and do audits at houses and see, is your dog licensed? And then they would get a fine if it wasn't. We can't do that. So if we're doing away with the animal control ordinance in general, then why would anyone get a dog license? Who's going to enforce it? The only time the enforcement would occur is if, you know, there's a dog bite and the dog isn't licensed, and the police agency, and correct me if I'm wrong here, would then, you know, it would be a fine because you didn't license your dog. So yeah, I mean, that's the flaw right now in what we're doing. And over the last several years, not going in and seeing if people are licensing their dogs. And I'm sure that Christy could say it, the sheriff could say it, a lot of people just don't bother licensing because they know no one's gonna find out, right? So
I'm guessing we are not doing the annual dog census.
no.
Okay.
I mean, they're doing that as far as the licensing, so if you had a license, they're sending the notice out. That's the gist of it. They send it out, they tell you to get your license renewed. You know, if your dog's passed away, then, you know, you're not gonna do it. But if you just don't do it, they don't go back and say, do you still have that dog? They're not doing that. That's what used to be done years ago.
Okay. Thank you.
And we did have a discussion with legal counsel that by having the ordinance but not being in a capacity to enforce it does not create a liability on behalf of the county. So there's not a pressing legal requirement that we need to get rid of it. because it's creating this. It's the same when we had to pull road patrol from out county because we didn't have enough deputies to staff shifts. It doesn't create a liability to not enforce it. So I just wanted to add that for the discussion as you're thinking through it.
Okay, I guess that's covered. We can move on to 6, letter D, the Exxon contract review.
That would be me.
Go ahead, Sheriff, yeah.
Mr. Chair, the Commissioners, I'm requesting that the proposed Axon contract amendment be advanced to the Ways and Means Committee for further evaluation. Although 2 years remain on our current agreement, we believe it is important to be proactive and negotiate a revised contract that better reflects our operational needs, both internal and contractual. The proposed structure enables us to recognize individual police service contracts as they relate to Axon equipment and associated subscription services. It also provides graceful exit strategy that allows for the termination or modification of individual contracts without financial penalty should a service agreement end midterm. Upgrading at this time will align our department with the new standard being adopted across the Sheriff's Office following the failed millage proposal. The updated contract figures more accurately reflect our current operational reality and ensure that our equipment, software, and data storage systems remain current and fully covered under warranty. The projected first-year cost is essentially identical to our existing obligation under the current contract. Importantly, this revised approach allows the county to secure a fixed, predictable cost for these services rather than facing higher and more uncertain expenses in the future. Unfortunately, delaying this proposal will not positively impact current or future budget projections. In fact, it will inevitably increase operational costs. The proposal aligns with our operational goals by securing fixed pricing for the next 5 years, guaranteeing equipment replacement, ensuring consistent training for our officers, and providing a clear understanding of a long-term cost related to this contract. Advancing this request now positions us to stabilize expenses and maintain continuity of service for both our staff and the community. I respectfully ask the committee to move this proposal forward to the Ways and Means for review. If you want some further data on this, Nathan's here to speak to you if you have questions, or he can relate a little bit more than I can.
So we're looking for a motion to move this on to Ways and Means.
I'll make a motion.
Motion made, a second.
Support.
Motion and support. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Sheriff. Next on the agenda is Central Dispatch Department report.
Good afternoon, Director Kelly Flynn with Eaton County Central Dispatch. For our training this month, we did have telecommunicator Lalone attend the 40-hour basic. He is in 40-hour advance right now. These are 2 state mandate trainings, and it's kind of twofold. I host them quite often at our Central Dispatch training room, and it saves cost on, it is a 5-day class, it's 40 hours, so on travel and food and a hotel and all that stuff, so it does save on that. However, we get a bunch of new dispatchers that come into our center, and we talk to them, they see what we do, we have good conversations, network. So we enjoy having them. They come at least, probably sometimes 6 times a year, so we enjoy having them. Also, Supervisor Jones is in charge of the night scenarios with the Mid-Michigan Police Academy at the Lansing Community College West Campus. So we actually dispatch for the Police Academy night scenarios. And we had four dispatchers each night doing the mock dispatching. Again, great networking, and then it is an opportunity for us to train and get out there, so. Communication unit support, so we do have a bunch of Christmas parades this weekend. One is in Grand Ledge on Friday, and one is in Potterville and Eaton Rapids on Saturday. So we do make communication plans for those. And we currently have one open hiring process for a telecommunicator vacancy. We did have someone that was in training decide that this was not a career they were interested in. So we do have a posting. We're in the process of taking applications, and they take a test and do, if they pass the test, we do admin interviews. So that's where we're at right now. Telecommunicator very successfully completed the training program. So she was, had experience at another dispatch center, and so we did not make her do the whole 6 to 9 months training, one-on-one training, because she did have the basic knowledge of how to do the job. She just needed to learn the Eaton County stuff, so geography, our technology, all that stuff. So she's doing great. We're glad to have her on our team. We did have Mr. Betts came and visited Eaton County 911 to thank telecommunicator DeClerc for taking his 911 call when he was experiencing chest pain. So a lot of times we don't get follow-up or, know what's going on, but he said this is the second time he's had to call 911. One was for his mom, and he thanked the EMTs last time and realized that he needed to reach out to 911 this time. So we welcomed him in our center, gave him a tour, he brought everyone pizza, and he got to meet the telecommunicator who he talked to on the phone. And then telecommunicator Cavanier was interviewed by Fox 47 News for a story on how winter weather was prompting Eaton County emergency crews to prepare for the busy holiday weekend. So I did laugh. Brian asked me that Fox 47 News wanted to interview me on working the holidays. Well, I'm admin, so I have the holidays off per se. I still have my phone on. But so I thought it would be more appropriate for them to talk to one of my dispatchers that was working the holiday weekend. So she did a great job, and that is all I have for my report. It is not on the agenda, but I will touch base on the record policy where I'm at. I did reach out to record companies for pricing. Those are due tomorrow. I have received 3 so far, and some other, they have reached out to me over the phone or email for some questions. So I will gather all that data and present that next month and kind of come up with an idea of where we're going with that. And then Chairperson Holmes did have just a few corrections to clarify some language, so I cleaned that up. So I will bring back the draft copy. It didn't change the meaning or anything, but just to clarify a few sections. So I made those corrections, and you will hear more on that next month.
Thank you, Kelly. Would there be any questions for Kelly? I see one. Commissioner.
Thank you for your report, Kelly. You had mentioned the wrecker portion of the contracts. You said you have 3. How many did you actually, how many did you have to send them out to that may be interested?
I asked for the email, and I did look at it. I can't remember. There was 8 record companies we sent letters to.
And was that just the Charlotte Potterville area, or is that all of Eaton County?
It was the Eaton County, the record companies that we, that have contacted us that use curbside SOS and are used throughout the county.
I only ask, we've actually spoke about this in the past, but I only ask because it's a big issue at the city level, so I was just curious how that was.
Yep, no, we asked everyone for prices so that we could kind of get an average. I guess one thing I did want to, I guess I didn't really think about when creating the policy, and if you want to give feedback, they did give me kind of some price ranges on some services because it really depends on where they're coming from and going to in the county. So I will present that next month of kind of like probably price ranges. If you're against it, then let me know.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thanks.
We'll move on now. We have number 8 on the agenda, trial courts, dealing with a resolution to approve the interim agreement for the operation of the youth facility. I see someone may come in.
Yeah, this is an annual resolution where the board does an agreement for the courts to handle the youth facility and the youth, where I will tell you, we know that the courts are better equipped to deal with this. So we've had this agreement for years. I should have gone to look how long it's been, but the court administrator is here, and also the director of the youth facility is here to talk.
Thank you, Amy Etzel, Court Administrator. I think Connie did a fine job summing up. I was just going to sum it up and introduce Jeremy Mulvaney, the Director of the Youth Facility, who's going to give you some oversight and just some updates on the facility. He oversees all the programming at the facility, works closely with myself and Judge Pollard in the Controller's Office, providing data on a monthly basis with regards to census numbers, which then get reported to the Ways and Means Committee on a monthly basis with regards to revenue and expenses and projected fund balance for the child care fund. So I will turn it over to Mr. Mulvaney to give updates on his programming. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. First, I'm a little bummed that Christy left. Everybody's heaping all this praise on her. I was going to do the same. Just real quick, we had a situation where a couple of young men that we were working with, they had a parent who unexpectedly passed, and so they had to move to a different residence. The household was abandoned, lots of animals there. So I gave Christy a call, and she put on her superhero cape, rescued a whole bunch of animals. So just wanted to publicly thank her for that. Without her, we truly have no idea what would have happened with all those animals. So if you could pass that along to her, I would appreciate it. I can't imagine she's sitting back watching this at this point, so please pass that along. So quick updates for the youth facility. Not exactly sure what all information is being sought, but as of this morning in our secure programming, we are on secure detention, secure residential treatment. 13 out of our 14 beds that are open currently are being utilized. Our non-secure residential treatment is currently at capacity. Our day treatment program currently has 15 youth ordered to attend that program. Our link program, that attendance fluctuates, just kind of depends on how many youth our juvenile court orders into that program on a week-to-week basis. This past year, we had approximately 168 intakes into various programming spanning all services for our youth facility. And so that's kind of a general number. We also wanted to talk about, we increased our rates. We work with counties all over the state of Michigan. So we do lease out bed space when we have room, which lately isn't very often, but trying to keep up with the current rates and the increase that have been happening throughout the state. So we did increase our rates, our detention programming. We do charge $250 per day now. Our residential treatment services, we charge $325 per day. So we are able to generate some revenue for Eaton County by doing that. Like I said, I wish we could help more. I think once we open our new side of our facility, which I'll talk a little bit about that, we can certainly generate more revenue. But currently, like for instance, I think I have 6 referrals on my desk from the last week and a half from other counties all over the state. And unfortunately, I'm probably not going to be able to help out with any of those. So there certainly is still a demand in the state of Michigan, and we just help when we can. Talked a little bit about our new wing of our facility and some of the difficulties that we've had in fully opening that. We are getting significantly more applicants for employment, which is a huge relief. The bigger issue there, I think, is once we get these folks hired, the training process is pretty intense. And I think, like when Kelly was up here talking, you get people into that process and people realize it's not for everybody. It's hard work. It's a difficult profession. The training is quite intense. The initial training period is about 80 hours just for the basics. We then have another approximately 10 hours of de-escalation, physical management training. Once we're done with just the real basic stuff, we then go back and assess where that staff is. We also ask that particular staff where they feel like they need more training. We fill in gaps at that point where we feel it's necessary and where they would like additional training. So all told, we're looking at well over 100 hours of initial training just to get them to the point where they can start to function as a staff on the floor. What we found out since COVID is some of our new hires, the younger generation seems to be much more of a transient type of workforce. They're always kind of looking for the next best thing. So holding on to them has been really difficult. Our core staff throughout all this has been phenomenal. We've got staff there that have been there for 25 years, 20 years, 10, 15 years. We've hardly lost any of them. But holding on to new staff, that's been the challenge. But like I said, we're getting many, many more applicants. So I think it's going to get a little bit easier as we go forward here. And we're anticipating hopefully getting everything fully opened in the next few months. Be happy to take questions if anybody has them.
Are there any questions?
Move the resolution.
We have motion and support to move this resolution. Any more discussion? See none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
I'll just say thank you very much because we don't want to run the youth facility. We couldn't even come close to what Court and Jeremy do. So it's amazing. Thank you.
Next on our agenda, number 9, the Emergency Management Department report.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Ryan Wilkinson, the Emergency Manager. Did a lot of work with our media partners this last month, largely related around winter hazards and Winter Hazards Awareness Week. Our 3 main talking points there, know before you go right. Try and understand your forecasting, watch your resources through the National Weather Service. That way you can adjust, delay plans, whatever you have to do accordingly. Second message is always to stay safe indoors, stay safe outdoors. I'm a part-time firefighter as well. I've been in houses to where we're warming houses in very, I'll say, unique ways, and sometimes that's not the safest way, so we want to tell people to stay safe indoors. Stay safe outdoors, too, understanding that when you're cleaning up your driveway, cleaning up your sidewalks, that's a lot of stress on your body, right? So make sure that we're, listening to our bodies, staying safe outdoors when we do those things. And then that third point, again, just check on those quiet houses, that neighbor helping neighbor aspect, particularly with our vulnerable population. So those are our 3 main talking points. Did a lot of work with Fox 47 and WILX this last month. They reach out to us frequently. We elevator pitch them ideas as well, and they often kind of bite on those sound bites, if you will. Just looking at our monthly activities this last month, also we continue our partnership with the University of Olivet, and in particular their criminal justice program. We sit on their panel twice in an academic year for their criminal justice program mock interviews. We did that again. We also frequently go in and speak to their criminal justice program or just talking about career guidance and things. So continue that partnership. And then just to highlight Ella, we talked about it last summer. She did receive her CEM designation. That's her Certified Emergency Manager designation. That's an international designation, and she actually received that certificate this last month. So she is officially official. You see that picture there in our monthly report. Second thing, so page 2 and 3 is a part of our report. Our multi-year strategic plan is in its comment period right now, if that's something that you'd like to take a look at. That QR code on that first page will take you to an ArcGIS Hub story map, which is a much more user-friendly web-based version of our plan. You see in the circle there too, 5 goals, 11 objectives, a whole host of milestones that'll help us work towards completing those objectives. But if you'd like to see that, scan that QR code. You can certainly email me if you like the full plan too. Feel free to check that out. On the next page is another QR code which actually links to an input survey if that's something that you feel compelled to do. We're certainly taking that information back and refining and adjusting before we put that into place on January 1st. which will kind of give us a roadmap for the next 2 years on some things that we're hoping to accomplish. Lastly, last January, the Council to Assess the Federal Emergency Management Agency executive order came out, and a lot of us in emergency management were wondering what that was going to look like. A lot of policy discussions and even some federal legislation that has been drafted over the course of the last 11 months now. That report sounds like it's coming to a head on December 11th is the final review council meeting, with it sounds like the report going to the president on February 12th. Everything is pointing towards a more state-centric disaster management model, and by state-centric, I mean everything from investment in financial and operational responsibilities, as well as just general time, energy, and efficiency. I think we're going to see a big difference in the way that we receive or get day-to-day, or even in times of disaster, federal disaster assistance. A lot of us are a little bit nervous about it to see what that looks like. There's some really good parts and some parts that we're, again, have a lot of concern about. So we'll see what that report entails here in the next few months, and then look to see kind of as a emergency management contingent at the state and local level, what our next steps are going to be. So that is my report, unless you have any questions for me.
Would there be any questions for Ryan? Thank you, Ryan. I see none. Moving on, our next is the prosecutor's office report for their department.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Commissioners. Chris Anderson from the Prosecutor's Office. November frankly, it was a pretty decent month for us. We managed to trim down our caseload again. That's the second straight month, so we're starting to make progress. In some of our backlog, we currently have 7,517 open cases. Doesn't seem like a lot, but we did trim 218 cases off our number from last month, so that is good. Part of that is due to the fact that we had some more time. Judges, I think, were at conference for for a week in the month, and then whether we like it or not, or whether people understand it or not, we had holidays in there that allowed us to work without interruption, because that's what we do on the holidays. So we took in 342 new cases last month. We were also, part of that with the judges being gone, is we were noticed to attend less hearings. So I don't think people really appreciate or understand that we don't get work done when we're in court. And so we have to have office time. And so when we're not spending as much time in court, we're able to get through cases that are sent to us. So all in all, it was a good month. The numbers were a little lower as far as case numbers, but that's because of the fact that we weren't in court as much. And you had some holidays in there. We did Monday, our newest APA, Taylor Brown, started. She comes to us from the state of Oklahoma by way of a family law firm in Grand Rapids, but she moved here for family reasons. She comes with some experience, and we're certainly very excited to have her. She's already hit the ground running. And then I just wanted to follow up. Last month I talked about a conviction that we had secured in a vulnerable adult embezzlement case. That individual was sentenced actually this afternoon by Judge Cunningham and given 7 to 15 years in prison. That's above her sentencing guidelines, in order to pay $81,000 in change in restitution to the single victim. I think it's important to point that out, that it's, as I said last month, it's not acceptable behavior. And we certainly applaud the court for the sentence they handed down today, that Judge Cunningham handed down, is hoping it sends a message to people not to steal from those vulnerable members of our community. So with that, I'd be open to questions.
Any questions for?
Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you. Next, we have miscellaneous items. Any
There's no miscellaneous.
miscellaneous? We have a portion for a limited public comment. Would there be anyone to make? See no response. Next item, adjourn. Shall we adjourn?